All the sports news you need. Live.
Hello, very good evening to you, and welcome to this locker room special tonight. And it is a special one because we've been busy all weekend with the Scottish Cup action, but sometimes we do special shows here on the locker room. We've in the past we focused on women's sports, youth football, but tonight we're dedicating another to the show about access for fans with disabilities in football. I'm happy to be joined by Regan Stevenson. Hopefully, he'll be joining us soon. But the main man is here, John Attenborough, who doesn't need any introduction whatsoever because John is a big advocate about accessibility for people with disabilities, and also he's got a book out as well. John, it's brilliant to have you in the show. How are you?
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely delighted to be on the show tonight. Thank you for having me, and yeah, I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you, Michael?
Yeah. I'm always happy to speak to a big advocate of people with disabilities getting into football grounds. But also, John, but I'm happy because it's late nights now as well. Because I don't know about you, but I don't like the dark nights. I'm a
It's
bit of a
it's nice to have the daylight for a bit longer during the day, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
exactly. I think the only thing I don't like about it is when the new football season starts, you always think, oh no, it's good to have the new season back, but it's a bit disappointing when it gets dark nights again in September.
Do you know what? I actually think it's a very good argument for having a summer league here in
Yeah,
Scotland because you leave the games at 5 o'clock and it's still bright and it's still relatively warm, and you're actually thinking, you know what, this is actually really nice. Whereas in September, it's pitch black by that time, absolutely pouring the rain, and you're just like, oh, I just want to get home. So I think it's a
yeah,
very good advert for a summer league, I think.
yeah. Yeah, so get your comments coming in. We're on Facebook, YouTube, or Facebook, YouTube, X, and Instagram. And even if you want to touch upon summer football, I'm sure, I'm sure John will
I
be.
probably opened a can of worms with that one,
Yeah,
but
yeah, I'm sure John will be happy to get, get your comment. So before we dive into the interview tonight, John, and to talk about the book that you're bringing out on the 1st of May at Hampden Park, hopefully there'll be lots of people coming along to that event. We'll speak about that in a wee minute or two. Can you give us a wee quick introduction to your kind of like background and how you kind of like got involved in the access side for fans with a disability?
yeah, absolutely. So, for those who don't know who I am and what I do, I've been a massive accessibility advocate for disabled football supporters, and I'm a Dundee United fan myself, and it was after the COVID lockdowns ended and the stadiums reopened again. I think that's when we've seen lots more fans actually wanting to go along to live sporting events, including the football, because it had been something that had been taken away from us for so long. And so I went along to a Dundee United game when the stadiums reopened again, and it was actually the first time of me going along with Sam as well. So it was like the first time that Sam had ever been to a live game. And it was at that time I was introduced to services such as the audio descriptive commentary. Now, the audio descriptive commentary for anybody who has a visual impairment, it's a service that clubs offer, which is very detailed, descriptive commentary. So they have somebody live sitting in the stadium doing the commentary, and you get a radio headset and you can listening during the match, and I was like, "Wow, I didn't even know this service existed." And this was, this was back in like 2021, towards the end of 2021, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is really cool," because it really enhanced my match day experience. And then I decided that I wanted to try going to some away games with Dundee United. So we went along to places like Easter Road, we went up to Pittodrie and Celtic Park and other places like that. And I found that they also offered this service. So actually, I thought, wow, I wonder what access is like throughout the SPFL. So I thought, I wonder if we could just, me and Sam, go round Scotland, just visiting all the grounds, not just the Premiership grounds, but the Championship, League One, and League Two, just to explore what access is like at all levels of Scottish football. And we found it to be overall a thoroughly positive experience.
So Reagan has joined us on the show now, John. So
Oh,
hi,
hi, Regan.
Reagan.
All right, John, how you doing? Michael, it's great to be on again. Thanks for having me, mate.
Yeah, no bother. Anytime. John was just telling us a wee bit about his background and why he kind of wanted to be in it. And I suppose because you're a Dundee United fan, John, we won't hold that against you. All teams are welcome on the show as well. So I know that you explained a bit about why like you wanted to do that and what the issue. So going back to the very beginning, why did you want to do this in terms of was a need for somebody like yourself with like lived experience going to kind of like different football games, different leagues in Scotland, and also I know that you've been down to England as well.
Mhm. Well, I didn't necessarily feel that there was a need for it. I was just out of my own kind of for two reasons really. It was out of my own just pure curiosity to see what accessible services there was available at all levels of the game. And second, and probably first and foremost, is really because I'm just a massive football fan in general, and I really love Scottish football. I think we've got something quite unique and special in this country. And so I decided to travel round the 42 SPFL grounds just to kind of get a feel for what access is like. I was particularly keen to see what access was like at the lower league grounds, places like East Fife and Peterhead and Stranraer, all these kind of almost obscure places. But what I found was that I was just having such a great time, and all the clubs that me and Sam visited were so engaging as well. I as we were going round the grounds, I started to make little videos for social media so that people could see me and Sam's journey and kind of follow what we're doing. And I just found that everybody involved in Scottish football, from the disability access officers to the media officers at the clubs to the supporters, that's one of the things I talk about in the book, is just how amazing Scottish football fans in general are. They were just all so welcoming to both me and Sam and really kind of embraced what we were doing.
So we've got our first comment of the night, John. It's from Graham Duffy. He is a friend of the show and a former Jambo of the show as well. Obviously, he's a Hearts fan. He says, massive respect to John for the work he is doing. I have saw clips of teams who do have the audio in the grounds and it looks really good and it must be a massive help to people. So yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And it really does improve the match day, tenfold for people who can't actually see what's happening on the pitch. Having that really descriptive commentary, it really enhances the match day, and it's just it's like offering a service to make fans feel included. So and I've been really pleased to see a high percentage of clubs in Scotland now having this service. So when me and Sam started going around the 42 SPFL grounds, I think it was around 60% of the clubs in the Premiership and the Championship who had the audio descriptive commentary services. Now we've completed this journey. A couple of years later, it's now about 71%, and I think it's only one one Premiership club that doesn't yet have the service. So we're definitely seeing a demand for the service, and we're also seeing clubs want to offer it to supporters as well.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was going to say to you, John. Obviously, you've been to all 42 clubs. You've been a busy guy over the past couple of years as well. But that was one of my questions to you. First of all, in terms of like when you approach the clubs, whether it's Dundee United or Forfeit or Dumbarton or whoever, were they? What was the kind of like reaction of the teams when you said, uh, obviously I'm visually impaired, I've got a guide dog, would it be okay if I come to see your facility? So just tell us about what was their kind of like reaction. Were they very kind of like accommodating?
Yeah, very accommodating. Actually, I never really had any negative experiences at any of the 42 SPFL clubs, which actually surprised me. You think going to that many clubs, you might even have one or two really, not so great experiences. But I actually found them all to be very welcoming. And I think really what helps with that is that there is an appointed disability access officer at every club. It's actually now a UEFA requirement for all UEFA member clubs to have somebody within the club who's an appointed disability access officer. So I would get in touch with the disability access officer before we would turn up for a game, just to make sure there was, accessible spaces, space for Sam to lie down and put things like that. And all the disability access officers were absolutely brilliant. There was actually quite a few who said, we've never actually had a guide dog in our stadium before. So they were actually quite looking forward to that. And one of the things I think, or one of the things I hope that we've achieved by visiting all the 42 grounds is that there's not one club that can say we've never had somebody with a guide dog in our stadium before. So you would hope that they now have procedures and processes in place to support other guide dog owners or other assistance dog owners who would like to go along to that stadium as well for a game.
Reagan, I know that the guy that has been speaking about John's work, and obviously we've been following on social media as well. And I'm delighted that we managed to squeeze John in, because I know you're a
Aye.
very, very busy man, but it's brilliant to see.
I mean, I've just been following John on TikTok and the stuff he's been doing. I mean, John,
Oh,
I
thank you.
wanted to say to you as well. Like, so obviously, I know Alexis through Celtic and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
see in terms of the stuff that you do, that you are experiencing, are the football, is there anything that you notice that the clubs could potentially be doing more, or are you thinking they're doing everything possible?
I think there's always going to be things that clubs could do more. I think when it comes to disability access, it's not like there's. I don't think there's ever going to be an end point. You know, I think there's always
Yeah,
going to
that's true.
be there's always going to be something that can be improved, and I think it becomes particularly challenging, especially with some of the lower league clubs who have very old
Yeah,
stadiums, and
yeah,
a lot of them still have the old terracing and things like that as well.
yeah. I
So when
mean,
it comes when sorry, go on.
I'm just going to say, I totally understand your pain there, John, because I'm in a wheelchair as well, and I totally understand what you mean in terms of the old stadia, because even like old stadia, there's some old stadia that potentially that I wouldn't visit because potentially the toilets are not accessible.
Yeah.
It's not just about the football, you know, John, it's about access to toilets, access to the car park, to the train station, to all these sort of things.
And it's all these kind of things. I think that if you don't have a disability, that you just the people don't realize, you know, that what you have to go through when you want to attend a football match. Because actually attending a football match, it doesn't just start with the Saturday morning. You know, it's the week leading up to it. You know, by the time you contact the ticket office to book your accessible tickets. Find out, for example, if there's accessible toilets, especially in the away end. If you're an away supporter going to watch your team away, you quite often you'll find that the accessible facilities are in the home end, you know, so there might not be an accessible toilet in the away end, for example. And it's all these things that you've got to kind of plan in advance, and you can't. It's very like if you've got any kind of disability, it is actually quite difficult to be spontaneous and just say, you know, like wake up on a Saturday morning and just say, you know what, I fancy going to that game. It's on at 3 o'clock, and you know, most people just go on their phone and book their ticket, and it's within 2 seconds they've got it.
I think that's
Whereas
a
if you,
I think that's a great point you make, John, because even for experience like me, I don't know if you're the same, but I mean, it's even stuff like pavements and stuff like that,
yeah,
because if I've not been to a stadium before, because I go to football with my friends, sometimes with support workers, but sometimes I'll go alone as well because I like to do things alone as well. So sometimes about if I've not been to that stadium, then I don't know potentially when I get to that stadium if there's a pothole next to a pavement or anything like that. That potentially if I go alone, then it's not safe for me to go alone because then I go
yeah,
right. What am I supposed to and it's even said things like John that I'm sure you experience. Like for instance, right? Say I go to Partick Thistle, right? But
yeah,
see the bit that we potentially go to now. The pavement that you go down is flat to go down, but the pavement to go up is far too high. So
yeah,
so 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 that's something that I need to bear in mind as well. So then potentially I need to go round the long way to
yeah.
to then get to the stadium as well. So it's like I totally get what you mean, John. It's all of these things that you need to think about as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think it's. I do genuinely think that the clubs, you know, they're trying their best with the resources that they've got, and I've definitely seen a lot of. I've seen even just in the past 5 years since the stadiums reopened again after COVID, I've seen clubs moving to kind of prioritise disability access. But I think when it comes to the lower league clubs, it definitely is. Unfortunately, it actually comes down to cost and lack of
Yep.
resources to do these things. And with having old stadiums, it's as you know, it's much harder to retrofit accessible facilities into a really old stadium than it would be to build it into a brand new facility if you were building a new stadium from scratch. But yeah, I always think that there's more that can be done, and you would actually hope that there would be some sort of external either government funding or SFA funding available for clubs who even want to level their ground the outside of their ground so that you've got like level access and you don't have to worry about potholes and that really there should be council funding for things like that, you would think.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, John, like, in general, because like, see, you're talking about commentary there. I mean, like people Ian Crocker, Rory Hamilton, people like that are uh, like people that are doing Sky and TNT, the Scottish football clubs, right? But I'm just wondering. See, when you go to Celtic or you go to Dundee United, right? Is it the same guy every single week, or does it change up?
So when it comes to the audio descriptive commentary, it's not. It's very different to the TV or radio. So you're not listening to like Ian Crocker or Rory Hamilton, because you tend to find that their commentary is for a much wider audience.
Yeah,
So
no,
they
no.
so they like Celtic, for instance, they're actually a really good example. Because they have such an amazing team of audio descriptive commentators who are very descriptive in what they in what they do. So they've got Callum,
Yeah, I know,
Kevin,
Cal.
and Katie who provide the commentary, and they are absolutely fantastic. And it's the same at Dundee United as well. We've got Stuart and Sam who do co-commentary every other week at Tannadice and that as well, and they are absolutely fantastic. And it's the same, at Hibs. There's George, who does a brilliant job every time I've been to Easter Road, and there's Gibby up at Pataudry as well. And I can't remember the guy's name at Hearts, but he also does a absolutely fantastic job.
Do you get to know these people, John?
I have, yeah. So just through our travels and documenting our journey on social media, I've got to know quite a few of the audio descriptive commentators, and yeah, I've got to know them quite well. And yeah, I think if you're listening to the service on a regular basis, you kind of get to know them, and they get to know you, and they kind of become like your friends, and you chat about the game and stuff with them, and it's actually it provides that social aspect as well to go into the football, which I think is really important, especially for disabled fans. When it comes to like mental health and things like that, I actually think football's a really good social activity. For it might be the one thing that a disabled supporter is looking forward to throughout the week. So it's really important to have these interactions and really important to have these services available to make the match day as inclusive as it can be.
Reagan, Graham has come back in that again. John, he says John is spot on for folk who doesn't have a disability. We don't think about these different sounds like what John or Reagan might be experiencing as well, but also as well, John, and also Reagan as well. The match day experience, obviously, it's when you go to the pub or whatever. But for people with disabilities, it actually starts when you actually like leave the front door, because like as you guys know, like you would need maybe an accessible bus or accessible taxi, and
Yeah.
you've got to phone ahead or a week in advance to just get into the football, and then but you've got to worry about getting back from the football as well.
It's a total nightmare. I mean, even I'll give you an example from my experience. I mean, even if I'm going to a game on a Saturday afternoon, I need to plan on the Wednesday, right? Well, what time does it kick off at? So I need to get someone in to support me 9 o'clock because the match is at 3 o'clock, or if it's say it's at 12:30. Well, obviously, I need to get someone in at 8 o'clock, so I can get up, get breakfast, do whatever, even before you just get up to worry about the football. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's a I mean, football's something that I enjoy, and I'm sure John enjoys, but it's something that you need to plan ahead for as well.
You do. It's there's the I think that's I think that's one of the biggest barriers for a lot of disabled supporters. I actually probably feel that there's a lot of disabled football fans who would love to go to more live games than they currently do, or even go to, their first live game, but are put off by the, just the amount of planning that you have to go through in the advance of going to a game, and all the organization and the things that you have to move around in order to accommodate different things. And for me, I mean, I don't mind it as much, purely because it's the one thing that I absolutely love. I love football, and I would I would move mountains if I could, just to be able to get along to a match day, regardless of who's playing. But yeah, and I think it goes back to my earlier point that I think, if you don't have a disability, it's just one of the things that you don't realise has to go into planning for the match day.
John, I was just going to ask you as well that me and Reagan loves talking about VR on the show. But when when you were speaking about audio commentary there, how does it work? Because in terms of like when we all go to the football, obviously it's more difficult for people with visual impairment. We don't know what happens in the ski game unless someone either texts you if they're watching the game in house or at a pub. But in terms of like if you're like Sir Callum at Celtic doing audio description commentary, how does that work then? Because obviously in the ski game you do see VR checking, but you don't you don't know what they're checking. So I mean, how does that work? I'm interested to know about that.
That is a really good question, and it is, and we have no advanced knowledge, just the same as everybody else in the stadium. So when the commentators who actually are the audio descriptive commentators, they don't have monitors in front of them, so they can't watch any replays in real time or that. So when there is a VAR check, that they are going just purely until we realize what the decision is or isn't. For a lot of the time, the commentators are just going by what they've just seen themselves. And as you know, because you've both been to live games, sometimes it can happen so quickly that they're like trying to remember what it was that they saw. So there might be a periods where they're saying to us in the audio descriptive headsets, like they might say like, okay, so there's a VAR check. It says on the screen possible red card or possible handball or possible free kick or possible penalty. But they're not actually sure what has happened. So they will kind of say the referees now, he put his finger to his ear, the VAR's giving him the decision, or they'll tell us the referee's been called over to the monitor to have a look at it himself. So that's really about as far as it can go until the decision's been given and we know what it's for. Then they can describe what has happened. But I think if you asked Callum or Kevin or Katie or Stuart and Sam at Dundee United, I think they would probably say that's the hardest part of their job, is when there is a VAR decision, because they're just as in the dark as the rest of the stadium is.
Before we move on to talk about the book, obviously you've got a big book launch on the 1st of May, and please get along to Hampden Park as well. as well. We'll give it a plug and we'll let people see the book in a minute or two. But in terms of like when you went to visit the 42 clubs and you told the clubs that you were coming, when you went to visit for the first time, what was the barriers that you found, John, up till like now, basically?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest barrier for me, certainly, from visiting the 42 football grounds wasn't particularly at the grounds themselves, but it was actually the travel to and from the
Yeah.
grounds. I mean, we travelled to all of them via public transport. So, as I'm sure you both know, ScotRail, even at the best of times, isn't always the best. So there was a few hiccups on the roads that way, and actually, I think there's two incidents that I kind of picked up on and talk about a wee bit about in the book. When we visited Inverness and also when we went down to Stranraer, the sort of issues we had public transport wise. And I actually found that, some of them can be unplanned as well. So it might just be that a train's broke down or the train's been cancelled and you kind of have to, get assistance to change your train times and train routes, on the spot, basically, which for any disabled supporter who uses public transport, that can induce a lot of anxiety because you've planned for one particular route and then your route's just been changed on the spot due to train cancellations or whatever. So I would actually say by far the hardest part of it and the biggest access barrier was the travelling.
Reagan, would you be the same?
Yeah, Michael. Because I travel to the football the majority by train or else by bus, and I would say for me, my chair, a lot of the times the bus drivers don't want to come out and put the ramp out. I had the same instance.
Wow.
I had the same instance last weekend, going along to Celtic Park for Celtic and Kilmarnock. And somebody actually helped me off the bus because the driver refused to put the ramp out. So uh, I think what John's saying there about public transport, I mean, it's a great tool, but it's a great tool if it can be used properly. But as we know, sometimes these things can crop up, and like I think now I sort of expect it to happen, and if it doesn't happen, I'm genuinely surprised because I just think as I think it's the point Graham made earlier, and a lot of my friends do this when we go out for meals or go out for a concert or anything, and they always say, "I never knew that was a problem until I spent some time with you, and then I realised." And it's not that it's not that people don't uh, pick up on it from day to day, from hearing from myself or even from John or whatever. It's just that if they're not with someone with a disability, then how are they supposed to know?
Yeah.
John, so now that you've completed all over 42 grounds, I thought Santa had a better job, but you must have a better job within all 42 grounds. But I just wanted to ask you quickly as well, how has your relationships been from when you first started? The likes of, I know that Celtic has put in Celtic and Rangers has put in a like sensitive room and accessible changing places toilets. Do they come to you for kind of like advice or expertise in terms of like life experience? Because I know that you've been doing work with our good pal Alistair at the Scottish Supporters Association?
Yes, so as me and Sam were kind of like traveling around the 42 grounds, one of the things that we'd been doing, as I mentioned before, was kind of documenting our journey online, whether that be through like Twitter or the short videos of our match days on TikTok and things like that. And a lot of the clubs started to share that themselves, with their own supporters. And I always thought, well, they must be quite pleased with their own access facilities if they're willing to share my content with their own supporters, or they felt comfortable enough to share it with their own supporters, which was a really positive thing for me to see. And yeah, I found that as we've travelled round, we kind of built up a contacts list and got to know a lot of the disability access officers who have maybe come and said, like, what else could we be doing, or we have limited resources, and what kind of things could we do on a budget, or it maybe doesn't cost anything is there things that we could do that doesn't even cost anything, and or very, very low cost. So yeah, I've definitely been approached by a few, and like you mentioned, Alistair at the SFSA's just asked me to come on board as to sort of help Stephen with the disabled supporters side of the SFSA as well, which I'm really looking forward to getting involved in. Organisations like Level Playing Field, who I think do an absolutely fantastic job, and I'm actually travelling down to their conference at Preston in 2 weeks' time, and looking forward to that. But I actually think an organisation like Level Playing Field, because Level Playing Field only really operate in England and Wales. Although they do kind of they dabble a little bit in Scottish football, but not as much. And I actually think disabled supporters in Scotland would benefit from an organisation like Level Playing Field up here. I think for me, I think that's probably what the next step needs to be to take access to the next level in Scotland, is some sort of organisation like Level Playing Field, but like, the Scottish version of that.
Do you feel though that not only football, John, but other sports as well, because we all know about Level Playing Field as well, and I know that they done a survey recently, but that was for more of European football and Scottish football as well, and I know that Alaska and the team done a survey specifically on Scottish football, but do you feel as though that we are kind of like lagging behind the kind of organisations in terms of there should have been a need for a level playing field Scotland about 5 years ago, or maybe like 2 years ago? I mean, why does it need to be? Because that you're making a good case for facilities and all that. That there should have been a level playing field before you actually, came along on your journey.
I would say, actually, I would answer that question both yes and no, because I actually think in some ways, Scotland are kind of ahead of the curve when it comes to disability access, particularly when it comes to services for blind and partially sighted supporters. In terms of the percentage of clubs who offer that as like the audio descriptive commentary as a service, it's a much higher percentage of clubs in Scotland that offer it than down south in England. So in terms of that side of it, I think Scotland, it is kind of surprising to me that hasn't been done already in Scotland, like an organisation like Level Playing Field, because Scotland's kind of already ahead of the curve in that kind of sense. But I would also answer, yes to that as well, because I think having a cohesive unit like a Level Playing Field in Scotland, or it gives disabled supporters of all clubs across Scotland that kind of collective unit to kind of come together and build that relationship with organisations like the SFA and the SPFL. And I think having that kind of collective voice would give disabled supporters that kind of platform to push access to the next level. Because, like I said, the access work, I think, generally in Scotland is very, very good, and we've definitely seen incremental improvements year on year. But I think having that kind of cohesive voice for disabled supporters would definitely take access to that next level in Scotland.
John, I was just going to ask you, like, see something that you touched on about 10 minutes ago. We spoke about the fact that that sometimes that we're not able to just to rock up to a match, right? And it's quite interesting because, like, see for instance, like if it's Ayr against I don't know, Falkirk in the playoff final, and say I wanted to go, how easy would it be for me to get a ticket? Would it be okay turning up? Or would I have to approach the officer? Because I think I've had that before, but I mean, I always find it quite difficult to find out who to contact, and then it always takes a few days to get back as well. So I just want to find out your experience. Say I was going along to the championship, the Premiership playoff final this season. Would I be able to just go up and get a ticket, or?
I think, particularly for access tickets, I think that's kind of the biggest area that needs improvement. Because it's never, I found travelling around the 42 SPFL grounds, the process for booking access tickets, it's very different at each club, because each club have their own ticketing platforms and they have their different processes for booking accessible tickets. The best advice I would give would probably be to get in touch with the disability access officer, like say at Ayr United or Falkirk, which are two clubs I've actually found to be very, very good. But again, it comes back to having to plan that, say a week in advance. Whereas if you're a non-disabled supporter, you can just go on your phone and have your ticket in 2 seconds, and just rock up to the game. So I actually think accessible ticketing is one of the biggest issues that I think clubs need to come together on to kind of come up with a solution that can it can work across the board, so that disabled supporters like yourself can be spontaneous and just rock up to the game. I think there's a lot of work to be done to get to that point, but it's definitely one of the biggest barriers at the moment.
I was just going to ask you, John. I've been down in England, right, and one of the advantages that I've found is that if I can get a, a, a ticket for a match, then there will be like a like a platform where someone can transfer their ticket and stuff like that. So I just think that even if we could do something like that up in Scotland, where because even for like if I'm going to the Hydro and I'm not able to go, there's no other platform for me to sell my ticket or for me to get a ticket, because the disabled tickets are so hard to get. I think there should be a platform for somebody to go, I'm not able to make this, when somebody else benefit from it. I just don't see any sort of groups or anything like that. I don't know if I don't know if you find that.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you 100%. I do think there needs to be some sort of platform. I'm actually surprised there isn't already. Like I've been down south as well to games where, you can go online and you can see people have put up their tickets who can't make it to the game, and you can get the resale tickets. And yeah, I think I do think that's something that we should have here as well.
So, as I say, we've got your book scanning by, John. We're going to share your book in a wee minute so that people can hopefully come along on the 1st of May. But I just wanted to touch upon, obviously, I spoke to you off air about this as well, and people follow you on social media might have known this. You and Sam done an excellent job visiting 42 clubs, but Sam unfortunately passed away a few weeks ago. And am I right in thinking that was when the book was actually published a couple of days after that?
No, so well, Sam, yeah, unfortunately, very suddenly and unexpectedly passed away in the middle of March last month. But the book was always kind of scheduled for the 1st of May. So it kind of actually makes the book launch a little bit bittersweet for me, because it's a shame that Sam, won't be there for the launch. And it was definitely as much part of it was much Sam's story as much as it was mine. We definitely came along as a unit to all the grounds that we went to. And what I found, what I found was really brilliant was that the publishers that I worked with, McNider and Grace, they were absolutely phenomenal, and they worked round the clock to get a nice little tribute page put in the back for Sam as well, just so that readers, know what had very sadly happened. And it kind of it changed the end to the book. I think it was an ending that nobody could have expected or wanted, but I was really pleased that they managed to get a nice little tribute in there for him.
We've got your book now on the screen, John. A nice picture of you and Sam in the front. By the way, I've been trying to work out for ages what was the football scarf that you had on in the picture of the book with Sam.
Yeah, so the front cover of the book is actually when me and Sam visited Dumbarton Football Club.
Right, okay. Yeah.
The club gave us a scarf and a little pin bag and stuff as well. So yeah, it's a Dumbarton scarf.
Yeah, so there you go. The book is called Following Sam, and obviously, it's on the 1st of May. The book launch at Hampden Park, and obviously, we haven't got the email address up, John, but obviously, if you want to give us that email address now, if people want to register to go to that event.
Yeah, so the book actually comes out on the 1st of May, and we are holding a book launch at Hampden Park on the 1st of May as well at 10 o'clock. So anybody who wants to come along, it's completely free, and all you have to do is just email info@scottishfootballmuseum.org.uk, and then they will confirm your registration for the event, and it will be held in the Scottish Football Hall of Fame room there. And yeah, I think we're actually expecting a really reasonably large turnout for the event. I think they're all looking forward to hosting us. The book will be available at the event as well for anybody who wants to get a copy of it, and I'll obviously be there speaking about our journey, and yeah, be happy to sign any copies for people as well.
And obviously, I've not saw the book, but obviously you put wee teaser bits up on social media as well, and you've had quotes from like Neil Doncaster and different people at the SFA, but I mean, part of you must feel very proud that you kind of done that journalist. John, because nothing's being done like this. Well, as I can see in Scottish football. So, well done.
No, thank you. And if I think even if you told me a year ago that I would have completed visiting all the 42 grounds and have a book coming out about it, and getting a nice quote about the book from people like Neil Doncaster, I would have just laughed at you and said, yeah, that's a good one, that is. But it has been the most unbelievable journey, and it's been a really positive journey. And I actually really enjoyed writing the book as well, because it's a subject that I'm really passionate about, and I was able to share me and Sam's experiences at every ground that we visited. Every club is in the book, and our experiences at every ground is in the book. And yeah, I just really hope that people really enjoy reading it.
And do you think that? Well, first of all, I was going to say to you, did you always want to put it on, put it on paper, like your experience, but also as well that it's going to be good that if people read your book, people with a disability, that kind of inspire. I think we use that word inspire too many times now in today's society. But in terms of like what you and Reagan was talking about earlier on about the barriers, just getting to a football game or just getting a bus or taxi or whatever to get to the ground as well, gives that. Are you hoping that more people with a disability will start going to the games? Because before reading your book, they'll be thinking, well, I'm a big football fan, but it's kind of put me off how am I going to get to Dundee United, even Hampden, for instance.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I do hope that many disabled football fans, would read my book and read about me and Sam's experiences, and actually see that there is a lot of really good work being done in football in Scotland. And I think it's something that not just disabled supporters, but just supporters in general of Scottish football, is something I think that we should be really proud of, that we do have, people behind the scenes at all these clubs doing great work. And I always said from the very beginning, if me and that was the reason that I started documenting me and Sam's journey on social media, was to try and show people some of the great work that's being done. And if me and Sam's story can help even just one person, just if it gives them that motivation just to go, you know what, I'm a big fan of football. I've never been to a live game before. I'll maybe go along and see what the experience is like at my local club. If just one fan did that from reading the book or following our stuff on social media, then that would be job done for me.
I think that's a great point you make, Michael, as well, because now you're a kind of face, John, that you're showing that it's possible. Because I think that was the big thing with me about going to trying to do things in football and do things in the media, because I didn't have people that were growing up that were doing things with disabilities. So it was hard to really think, right, I want to do this, but is it not possible for me to do this? So if people are seeing you do it, then it's certainly going to make them feel as if they can do it, because that's something from my experience that I feel right away. I feel like, look, I've not got somebody that wants to be doing the sports news, that wants to be doing radio, that wants to be that wants to be in that kind of industry, that is showing that it is possible. But like you're saying, because you're doing that now, hopefully other people will follow, because then that means that you've done something positive, and hopefully by then it makes more people want to do it, because like I'm sure when people are thinking about it, it's the kind of the anxiety of trying trying something for the first time. Like, if people that don't want to go swimming or they don't want to do anything, but if they see somebody else that's
Yeah.
doing it, then they kind of go, right, well, I'm going to try this. But if you don't see anybody doing it that's the same as you, I maybe put myself in a bracket here, but it's true. If I don't see someone that's the same as me, then doing what I want to do, that is putting me off. But I think what John's saying there about that he's trying to put a positive message out there. I think it can only make more and more people want to try and improve facilities and also become football fans, because um, the amount of stadiums that John's painting has experienced in, there's clearly a lot of great work being done in Scotland.
Yeah, there is, and I think you're absolutely right. And it actually reminds me of one of my match day experiences. When you're talking about, if people can see it, they know that they can be it. And I was at one of the women's games. I think it was last season at the cup final between Rangers and Partick Thistle. And me and Sam were sitting. I was at Tynecastle, so yeah, I think it was the cup final. And in the row behind me was a girl there with her dad. She was a Partick Thistle fan, and in that match, Partick Thistle were by far the underdogs. It was the first time the Partick Thistle women's team had reached the cup final, and they were playing Rangers in the final. And Partick Thistle scored first. And that little girl just went absolutely crazy because, that was her team and it was her football hero who had scored. And she said to her dad, because she was sitting right behind where I was sitting, she said to her dad, she says, Dad, that could be me one day. And I was just thinking, you know what, this is what football is all about, and that absolutely can be her one day, because she's seen, her idol, who's obviously, the female Partick Thistle striker, scoring a goal in a cup final for her team, and it's made that little girl's felt inspired by that to perhaps want to take up football, and because she's seen it happening. So if I can be that motivation for even just one person, then, like as I said, it would be job done for me.
I suppose that's why we love football, Reagan, because obviously you've got cerebral palsy football, you've got blind, you even get visually impaired football. And by the way, if you haven't saw that game, I would advise you to watch it, because it was fascinating, because it's not like your usual football Dundee United game, John, where that the fans are making lots of noise. They've got to be quiet because there's a bell in the ball as well. And also you've got kind of like amputee football. So that's why we love talking about football, Reagan, and that's why we love football as well.
It definitely is. I mean, I think it's like I said earlier. I mean, these football, they deserve more airtime. They deserve more recognition, because if they're not being seen, as I say to you all the time, like the big thing that annoys me is that if you look at all the the Paris Paralympics, I mean, a lot of these sports like powerchair football, boccia, and goalball. Do you know what do you know what that is, John? Goalball.
The power. I've been to. So actually, I give a shout out to power chair football in my book, because the day that we went to the Stenhousemuir game, it was in the afternoon, and in the morning we actually, the Lothian Wolves.
Yeah, Lothian Wolves. Yeah.
Yeah. So we actually went along to a Lothian Wolves game in Stirling. Just before we went to the Stenhousemuir game, and that was my first experience of going to a live sort of power chair football match, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. It was a really, really fascinating experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's just brilliant to hear that, John, because I think it's great that these sports can get exposure because, like we were saying earlier, if they don't get exposure, then how are people supposed to know?
Yeah,
We,
exactly.
we've got a few minutes there, but I just wanted to touch upon some other comments, and I hope Reagan doesn't mind me saying this to you because I haven't spoke about it, Reagan, as well. But in terms of like, there's so many kind of like journalists now being qualified into kind of like sports broadcasting, and I know Reagan has a thing at the moment, and really the level playing field or the Scottish Football Supporters Association should be looking at. People want to be journalists, but they can't really access um the the press box because it's not kind of like fully accessible. And also, I think you said earlier on, John, that most football grounds are very kind of like old fashioned, and you would love me to say Dundee on the show because you're a very big United fan. But I mean, Dundee very kind of like not talking about the press box as well, but overall, that's a very inaccessible stadium for fans with disabilities. But in terms of like going back to like the media for a moment, that's a big barrier, and maybe that puts people off being journalists because like they can't get into kind of like press boxes.
100%, and I think I was quite fortunate on quite a few of our visits around the 42 SPFL grounds to be given sort of media access to the games because we were kind of documenting it through social media, and so I would actually say pretty much all of the press boxes are really inaccessible. You know, I never came across one sort of wheelchair space in the press box, which to me I found absolutely crazy. And some of them had no step-free access to the press boxes or things like that. And so I was like, this is quite madness, actually. You know, so I think that's a really good point. You know, disability access doesn't just stretch to the supporters, but it has to widen out to, you know, the media who are coming along to cover the games, and even to make sure things like the press rooms are accessible, you know, for interviewing the managers or players after the game and stuff as well. So there's a lot of work to be done there, and that's not just exclusive to Scotland either. It's the same, you know, down south in England. So I actually think that's a big area that clubs should really think about.
I
Reagan,
mean,
sorry for you.
I mean, it definitely is because I've had that experience as well where I would like to do it, but as you said there, John, the press boxes are not accessible at
Yeah.
all. So it's just it's how do you start to make inroads into Scottish football if you can't even access the press box to feel part of the experience? I mean that's all part of your that's all part of someone's enjoyment as well. It's going up to
Hmm.
the press box and feeling part of it.
Yep.
And it's sort of like you said earlier. I mean, I can see it from the club's point of view as well because, like, the press boxes and the stadiums are that old that they probably can't insert a lift to certain points.
Mm.
I've not spoken to clubs about it, but I'm guessing that would be their kind of line about it, John. But I'll be contacting some clubs to find out because I think, like, John, because what I don't want to happen, John, is I don't want journalists with a disability to qualify um, from a degree and then not have the opportunity. Because what's the point of of qualifying with a degree and then not being able to do what you want to do.
100%.
I mean, obviously, I would enjoy doing radio more than doing football to journalism or whatever, but I would like to do it from time to time. And also, there's people that I know that are doing sports journalism that are in a wheelchair at the moment, and I think it's not just enjoying you'll know this as well. It's not just about doing it for us. It's about doing it for other people as well, for the future. Because if it's not getting fixed just now, then I would rather that something's getting sorted so that in 2 years' time that it will be fixed. Because if someone's not if they're not getting it fixed right now, then unfortunately it'll never get fixed. Because like you said, if there's people like me and you here, it's important that we stress our expertise over to these people because because they probably don't see it as that big a deal. But then we do it because we work hard to get degrees and do whatever we need to do, and then the opportunities still not there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think particularly when it comes to the sort of media side and the press boxes, I think there's a very, very long way to go in terms of disability access. But hopefully by highlighting that, you know, we're getting clubs to sort of think about it. And I actually think the more journalists and more reporters who do come through with a degree who have a disability, who then start applying for press passes to games, clubs are going to start noticing that. You know, so the more qualified journalists we have who have a disability, again, I think it will come down to a supply and demand sort of thing. If clubs are seeing an increased demand in accessible facilities in that area of the stadium, it's definitely going to be something that they're going to have to think about. And as you said, Reagan, I think they really need to start looking at it now rather than in 2 years' time when the demand for it is actually going to be there.
So John, you've completed 42 lines. You've completed your book. What else are you doing at the moment? There's no stopping you.
Yeah, you know, I'm just you know, I just taking each day as it comes at the moment, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the book coming out obviously next week, and yeah, this past year has just been spent kind of writing it and visiting all the different football grounds. So I'm still going to the football, so I'm still there every weekend, and I'm looking forward to the end of the season, and then. You know, after next week, I'm doing various appearances at Waterstones bookstores across the country as well, and various book festivals and that. So yeah, I look forward to getting out and about and speaking to people about me and Sam's amazing journey.
There you go. Putting the book up again so that if people's missed it, if they went out for a wee out the room for a minute, you can, that is John's book. It's out on the 1st of May, called Following Sam, and I'm happy I can relax now, John, because I was a bit worried about what scarves you had gone there. I thought it was a Dundee style scarves you had gone as well. So yeah, try not swear, John, because I know Dundee and Dundee.
Well, you know what? There's very few scarves that I wouldn't wear, but Dundee is definitely one of them.
Right, okay. Oh, so the 1st of May at Hampden Park at 10 o'clock in the morning. So if you email, is that the Hampden museum email address? Is that just
Yeah,
kind of like
it's so
info?
it's
Yeah.
info at scottishfootballmuseum.org.uk. If you email info at scottishfootballmuseum.org.uk, they'll confirm your registration, and it's totally free, and there'll be tea and coffee and that for people as well. And yeah, it should be a really good event.
There you
John,
go. Yeah.
well, I know we've had a long show, but we can't leave the locker room without talking about Dundee United.
Yeah.
Yeah. I must say, yeah, I'm actually very pleased with how our season's gone. I said at the start of the season that because it's obviously our first season back in the Premiership after coming up from the Championship, I said at the beginning of the season if we were able to finish, outside the playoff, even finish 8th or 9th, I would have been happy with that, a consolidation series. But yeah, no, I'm very pleased with the work that Jim Goodwin and the team have done. And yeah, hopefully with the run in now at the post-split fixtures, I know we play Celtic on Saturday, which I think could be a title party for Celtic. But
John, will you be there? Will you be at Tannadice?
I will, yeah. I'll be at Tannadice on Saturday. Yeah,
That'll be good.
looking forward to it.
You'll be hoping for Dundee United to qualify for Europe, and you can do vlogs from different parts. Yeah, that'll be good. Yeah,
that'd be amazing. Yeah, I really hope we. Yeah, I think. Yeah, if we can get a European qualifier game, that would be amazing.
I was just going to ask you, John, talking about European football. Has anybody in Europe got in touch with you, trying to offer their facilities to try it?
Well, funnily enough, I'm actually involved. I've actually just recently got involved with the Football Supporters Europe group, the FSC. And and I'll be going over at the end of June. The end of June. I'll be going over to their conference in Malmo in Sweden. So I'm looking forward to kind of getting a bit more involved in the European side of
brilliant!
Access. Yeah, so that should be quite interesting. I'm looking forward to that.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, John, we'll get you back on before the end of the season. Hopefully, it'll be a good end to the season, and United will be in Europe as well. We'll get you back.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
We'll get you back on the locker room on Friday.
I'll maybe pop along to Hampden as well, John, and see you.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, I'd absolutely love to meet you in person. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. No, so remember, guys, 1st of May, Hampden Park's a place to be on Friday morning, and you can meet John, and you can get a copy of John's book as well. Or further than that, you can. John's doing a tour, as it were, at Waterstone's bookshops as well. So, is it audio? Have you put on audio, John? Yeah.
Yeah. The audiobook will be available. I think the audiobook's coming out a week or two just after the physical book comes out, but it will be available. It will be available, and you can get the paperback copy. It's available on Kindle as well, and the audiobook will be available. So the audiobook will actually be available on Audible, but for blind and visually impaired supporters, it will also be available for free from the RNIB Talking Book Library as well.
Cool. Yeah. So there you go. You have been warned about the book now. Plenty of time tonight. If you've missed the show, go back to watch it. It's a very important show to highlight disability football as well. Because that's the thing about doing the show, Reagan. I mean, we've covered like youth football, women's football, and tonight it was all about disability access as well. So I'm delighted that John came on.
I mean, it's so important to highlight these topics. I mean, and it's so important to get people like John's experience as well, because as I said earlier, if we don't get these people experiences, then nothing's ever going to change. So we need to spread the word about trying to make things better, because it might sound ignorant. arrogant, but some people don't realise, so you need to point out to them. And I think what John's doing is great work as well, John. Uh, 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 particularly on trying to do better in Scottish football because as John will know as well, Scottish football is a very tight knit family as well. There's a lot of very good clubs and a lot of great work. So I'm glad John's really he's really got the benefit of that. But I'm glad he's highlighting it as well because these people deserve recognition as well, John.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a lot of great work being done in Scottish football, and I think it's a lot of work being done behind the scenes that most supporters don't necessarily see or even know about that's been going on at their own club. So yeah, it says I feel that I hope that from what I've been doing over the past couple of years, and hopefully people can see by reading the book, it kind of celebrates the work being done behind the scenes at these clubs as well. So kind of gives recognition to particularly the disability access officers and the great work that they all do.
Okay, so once again, John, well, thanks for joining us tonight. It was a fascinating insight into disability access for football fans, and maybe for other sports as well, because other sports fans, like tennis and snooker fans as well, might face access problems. I'll say this again, 1st of May. Honest, I'm not on commission from John. John just mentioned it once, and I said no, I'll mention it 10 times on the show. So there you go. So
I appreciate it.
yeah, no, it's brilliant to have you on, John, and as I say, we'll have you back towards the end of the season to talk about Dundee United qualifying for Europe, hopefully.
We'll either qualify for Europe or this will be our downfall, and it's going to be one or the other. So I'll either be really happy or just absolutely miserable.
At least you've got your book to hold back on, John.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, exactly. I've got something to be cheerful about.
Yeah. Reagan, pleasure always. Thanks for joining me tonight, Reagan.
Thank you.
We'll be back on Friday for our usual build up to the first weekend of the bottom six, top six football in the Premiership. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you on Friday live 5 o'clock.